On January the 13th of 2018, roughly 7 months after he'd been released from prison, a senior citizen was arrested for carrying out an armed robbery at an Arizona credit union. Career criminal Robert Krebs, at the time in his early 80s, had spent most of his adult life behind bars. His stints had included 3 years for a 1966 conviction in Chicago for embezzling $72,000 from a bank, where he'd worked as a teller. He'd spent over 30 years in prison for a bank robbery he'd carried out in Florida in 1981, and had also been convicted of theft and armed robbery in Arizona. As reported by the Orlando Sentinel, Krebs had used a disguise involving cotton in his cheeks and a wig for the 1981 heist. He'd also varnished his fingertips so that he wouldn't leave any prints. A branch manager activated a silent alarm and Krebs was taken into custody as he walked into the bank's parking lot. 37 years after his latest heist and several months following his prison release, Krebs entered the Pyramid Federal Credit Union branch on Tucson's northern edge. He placed a pistol, which later turned out to be a BB gun, on the counter and demanded cash. The senior citizen walked off with an estimated $8,400, but was arrested at a hotel the following day after he was recognized from surveillance footage distributed by the police. Krebs subsequently told investigators that he hadn't worn the disguise on purpose because he wanted to get caught and returned to prison. He described the months following his release as the worst he'd ever experienced, as he struggled to adjust to life on the outside and survive on his monthly $800 Social Security payment. Krebs' lawyer had said that the man had claimed he wanted to get out of the freedom business. The 84-year-old appeared during his 2021 sentencing in a wheelchair and had trouble hearing what was said in a courtroom. He declined to answer the judge when asked if he accepted responsibility for his actions before receiving his sentence of more than 21 years in prison. Number 7. Richard Harvey. On September the 20th of 2022, Michigan woman Joan Jacobson, aged 83, was on her first day as a volunteer, canvassing homes for the Right of Life organization. Her duties involved going door to door and asking voters to oppose Proposition 3 during an upcoming ballot measure. The proposition would have guaranteed abortion rights in the Michigan Constitution. She reached the home of Richard and Sharon Harvey near Lake Odessa and got into an argument with the latter. Sharon told her that she'd had a tubal pregnancy in 1971 that required surgery and nearly killed her, with the experience in becoming a focal point in their dispute. The exchange, which took place on the couple's porch, lasted 3 to 4 minutes before 72-year-old Richard emerged from a barn with a rifle and shot Jacobson. Although suffering from intense pain, the elderly woman managed to drive herself to the Lake Odessa Police Department. She was rushed to a Grand Rapids hospital via ambulance, where doctors found that the bullet had narrowly missed her spine and had become lodged in soft tissue between her shoulder and collarbone. Jacobson survived the shooting, and Richard was arrested for felonious assault and 2 misdemeanor firearms charges, for which he faced up to 6 years behind bars. The senior citizen maintained that he'd intended to fire a warning shot to scare Jacobson as she was aggressively waving her clipboard and umbrella in his wife's face. He claimed that he then tried to use the rifle to club the clipboard out of her hand, but that he'd accidentally pulled the trigger while the weapon was pointing at her. In the 911 call that followed the incident, Richard claimed that he hadn't shot the woman, whom he described to the operator as a right-wing nut, on purpose. Accounts on the circumstances surrounding the gunshot also differed, as Jacobson claimed it occurred without warning as she was walking away from the home. The Harveys, however, stated that she was belligerent and refused to leave the property, in spite of being asked to do so multiple times. Number 6. Beverly Baker. A family from Pasadena, California, were considering moving home in late October of 2022 after their elderly neighbor attacked their house with a pickaxe during what was reported as a mental breakdown. Part of the incident, which occurred on October the 24th, was caught by the Ring doorbell camera of chiropractor Armand Chukadrian. The clip showed 65-year-old Beverly Baker approaching his house with a pickaxe on her shoulder. The woman then started swinging the tool and smashing Chukadrian's windows. She was recorded yelling out, "Questions? Questions, anyone? I'll be back. Get out!" Chuka Drian's mother-in-law and baby daughter at home. As Baker's charge on the property unfolded, the child was sleeping in a bassinet near the windows and would have likely suffered serious injuries if her grandmother hadn't intervened and pulled her away. The authorities were called and arrested Baker at her home, which was only a few blocks from the scene of the attack. Later that evening, she was charged with 1 felony count of vandalism. As reported by the Pasadena Police Department, she and Chuka Drian had no relation and she had no record with the department. Law enforcement suspected that the pickaxe incident had been the product of a mental health emergency that the woman was experiencing at the time. Chuka Drian and his family were considering changing their address, as Baker's attack on their property had left them feeling unsafe in their home. Number 5. Connecticut Group. A group of 6 elderly Connecticut residents were arrested at the Grace Richardson Conservation Area in Fairfield in August of 2019. Surveillance in the wooded region had recently been increased following reports that lewd activity was taking place on the premises. The park had been advertised on at least one city hookup guide as a meetup spot. On August the 9th, concerned citizens called the police and reported one such incident. A group of elderly residents, 5 men and 1 woman, were consequently caught having relations in the woodland. They were identified by the CT Post as Daniel Dobbins, Otto Williams, John Linartz, and Charles Ardito, along with Richard Butler and his wife Joyce, both of whom were in their 80s. They were all arrested and charged with breach of peace, with Dobbins and Linartz also being charged with public indecency. The former had been arrested in the past for second-degree breach of peace after he was spotted walking naked through a public park. When law enforcement found the 67-year-old, he was inside his car, wearing no underwear, with his shirt and shorts draped over him. Number 4. Vera Anthony. An 85-year-old woman was taken into custody by law enforcement in Lady Lake, Florida, in the summer of 2019 on a charge of battery on a person over the age of 65. According to the arrest report, Vera Anthony had become the main aggressor during a fight with an elderly man. Anthony, who had no prior criminal history, reportedly struck the unnamed victim with a television remote. The authorities were called following the altercation, which wasn't reported to have left the man with serious injuries. Anthony, a native of Sayre, Pennsylvania, was subsequently booked at the Sumter County Detention Center. Number 3. Robert Champini. In July of 2019, a senior citizen from New Hampshire was arrested for abusing a female resident at the nursing home where they were both residents. The unnamed 83-year-old victim was staying at the Crestwood nursing home after she had suffered a stroke. Robert Champini forced himself on her in June, and the attack was immediately reported to local authorities. They tracked down 74-year-old Champini to a Manchester hotel and took him into custody. It wasn't made immediately clear if he had an attorney, and his phone number was disconnected. He was released of his own recognizance and scheduled for a court appearance later in July. Today's topic was requested by Instagram follower Sherry Elise. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below, or follow us on Instagram and reach out to us there. Number 2. Donald Stratton. On the afternoon of March the 7th of 2018, senior citizen Donald Stratton walked into a Bank of America branch in South Portland, Maine. He asked a young woman working as a teller to turn over the money, telling her he had a gun loaded with 8 bullets. 70-year-old Stratton, who'd made no effort to conceal his identity, put one hand on the counter while the other was inside his jacket, suggesting he was about to pull out a weapon. The teller nervously gave him the money in her top drawer, which amounted to $895. Stratton then walked out of the bank. He displayed no urgency in his getaway and didn't have a car waiting for him, so he planned to take the bus home. South Portland police arrived at the scene within minutes. They held Stratton, who appeared to have been waiting for them at gunpoint, and took him into custody. The police recovered the stolen cash and a water gun, which the senior citizen had had on him during the heist. As he was interviewed by detectives, Stratton not only confessed but claimed that he wanted to get caught. He reported that he'd struggled with depression and no longer felt like a productive member of society. Stratton added that he'd woken up that day with one of 2 choices in his mind. Either he'd rob the bank or take his own life. He reportedly regarded spending a few years in prison as something potentially beneficial to his mental health. The water gun in his possession was held together with black tape and had previously been used by Stratton to train his cats not to scratch household items. He claimed to have brought it with him for fear that he wouldn't be taken seriously otherwise. Stratton was charged with Class B robbery, for which he faced up to 10 years in prison, but given his age, mental state, and lack of criminal record, prosecutors were expected to be lenient. Number 1. Kenneth Montgomery. In late November of 2022, a woman and her son were ambushed and shot outside a store in Mesa, Arizona. 27-year-old Albert Liotta and his mother, Antoinette, were in separate vehicles in the parking lot of a Hobby Lobby store. 65-year-old Kenneth Montgomery parked his truck in front of their cars and unloaded a 9mm pistol into them. 10 shell casings were subsequently recovered from the scene. Albert called 911 in the immediate aftermath. He was taken to a hospital with gunshot wounds to both legs, while his 61-year-old mother was pronounced dead at the scene. Maricopa County deputies found Montgomery as he was climbing into the bed of a stranger's pickup truck in the area of Bush Highway northeast of Mesa. The handgun he'd used in the shooting was recovered with blood on it from Montgomery's truck, which was located near the Butcher Jones recreation site. Following his arrest, he admitted to the authorities that he'd shot the mother and son because he thought they'd been involved in prior criminal activity. He added that anybody would have done the same. It was, however, determined by the police that the senior citizen and the victims didn't know each other. Montgomery was held at the Maricopa County Jail on a $1 million bond and charges that included second-degree murder and aggravated assault. Thanks for watching. Would you rather know how your love life would unfold or how you were going to die? Let us know in the comments section below.